Hey, how's it going? I hope all is excellent. And let's begin into some scary roller coaster crap. Yay. So everybody knows Final Destination 3, or if you do not, that is the reason why most 20-year-olds or 30-year-olds are afraid of roller coaster rides. And here are many stories of reasons why you should be afraid. So in May 2002, 58-year-old groundskeeper Samuel Guyton of Atlanta was killed after he wandered in a restricted area under the Batman roller coaster path and was struck in the head by a dangling leg by one of the riders. He lost his head that day, and the unfortunate lady also broke her leg. In June 2007, a teenager's leg was severed when cable snapped on the Superman Tower of a power ride in Six Flags in Kentucky. I love KFC. The doctors were able to attach one part of her leg. Other part, they had to amputate it. Another story, a teenager was killed by a roller coaster after he hopped over two pairs of fences that had clear warning signs just to get his hat. This was Six Flags over Georgia. Six Flags is having a great record. Tyler Sampson was another person. He was 14 years old. He fell off a Superman-like ride in 2022. Unfortunately, he was 100 pounds over the weight limit. Now let's dive into three stories that you probably heard, but just in case you haven't, here's some more horror stories of roller coasters for this winter. Caleb Swab, a young boy from Kansas, was visiting the Schlitterbahn water park. The family decided to visit the world's tallest and fastest water slide, created that time. Baroque stood at an intimidating 169 feet, or 51 meters if you count that way. And when it opened on the July of 2014, it was the tallest water slide in the world. Many were skeptical of this ride because while being tested, the rafts were getting stuck numerous times and people were injured. August of 2016, Caleb reached the height requirements, but at the top, two brothers were split up into two different rafts to reach the weight requirements. Nathan went down first without a problem and waited at the bottom of the ride for his other brother to come down. Caleb boarded another raft with his two sisters. They went down the first hill, reaching a speed of 70 miles per hour. On the second hill, the raft became airborne, causing Caleb to fly out of his seat and flew into the net above, hitting the support hoop and resulting in instant death, a decapitation. The other two women survived with a broken jaw and bone fractures. Rosa is another one. Rosa was one of 6 children and grew up in a loving home. At some point in her life, she moved to Texas and married her long-term partner, Antonio. The couple moved to Oak Cliff, a neighborhood in Texas. I love Texas. It's fantastic and dry. On July 2013, Rosa boarded the Texas Giant with her son and daughter. The Texas Giant was originally designed as an all-wooden roller coaster. Rosa was having trouble with her safety restraint. One witness said they didn't secure her right. One of the employees from the park asked to click a few more times, since you're supposed to click twice, and she only clicked once. She tried to click more, but she was unable. The operator of the ride said it was all good to go, and on she went. Rosa was seated in the third row as the roller coaster began. The steep descent from the first large hill of the track, she ejected from her seat, falling freely for approximately 75 feet, striking a support metal beam, nearly splitting her in half, and then coming to a rest on a metal roof of the tunnel. Everyone on the ride was horrified, especially Rosa's children, of course. But they couldn't get off the ride at first. They had to continue to go through the ride, and then once off the ride, her children ran to look for her body, but the park employees stopped them. Rosa wasn't overweight, for a little fact. It was more the employees were supposed to stop the ride before it even began. So make sure you always click in. The Texas Giant has been improved over the years, and there has been no incidents since then. Another story, Tyler Jarrell was a young man with everything going for him. He was an avid Manchester United fan and was likely to be pretty much everyone who met him in his life to be hospitable. He was very kind. He even joined the Marine Corps before he died. Spoiler alert. The Ohio State Fair is an annual event in Columbus, Ohio. It started in 1850 and is one of the oldest amusement parks in the US. The Fireball is a typical amusement ride known as a pendulum swing that is supported by two trailers housing water tanks serving as a stabilization weight for capacity. There are usually 24 passengers on the swing, and they would go up and down over 60 feet high and swing around. On July 2017, Tyler and his girlfriend boarded the Fireball, fastened in by an operator. The ride began and started to swing back and forth. Unfortunately, the ride suddenly ejected in a row of seat cars to break off and go plummeting towards the ground. Along with other numerous people on the ride fell off along, besides the one cart. So, if you imagine 3 parts of the ride, one part fell off, and then a few people from the other parts of the ride fell off as well. So after he fell off, he died, unfortunately, and his girlfriend woke up from a coma, not knowing that her boyfriend had died. 7 other people were injured during this event. Here's some other roller coaster rides through history that have been catastrophic. In 1997, amusement park in Oklahoma was packed by 25-cent ride promotion. On one of the rides, the cars reached its top hill. It stalled with a safety device meant to keep it from sliding backward, and it failed. The car slipped 45 feet back down the track and slammed into another car, ejecting a 14-year-old boy who was the only fatality. 6 other people were injured. In 1980, a teenage boy was stepping onto a ride. Without warning, a second train came up behind that car he was boarding and rammed it. The impact threw the teen into the tracks while the runaway train crushed him. 8 other people were injured as well. In 2010, Space Journey at Eco Venture Valley in China, the ride, which was designed to evoke the feeling of a rocket launch, placed riders in cabins that spun around under a dome. According to the South China Morning Post, Space Journey's 11 cabins, where riders were seated, all turned upside down, tossing the passengers. Why the cars flipped in the first place, you ask? Add to the number of conflicts eyewitnesses accounts, suggesting everything from a physical failure of the rear seats to a fire and explosion caused deaths. Big Thunder Railroad Mountain in Disneyland, 2003. The train, which consists of a small locomotive and 5 cars that can carry 32 people, had just climbed up a hill into a tunnel when the accident occurred. A wheel assembly of the locomotive jamming one of the axes, causing the back end of the locomotive to kick up and hit the top of the tunnel. The front car struck on locomotive undercarriage, killing one man who had extravagated from the wreckage by emergency workers. When the dust settled, the locomotive sat derailed on top of the hill while remaining cars stayed on the track and came to rest 20 to 30 feet away from the bottom of the incline. Fuji Rajan in 2007. May 2007 was Children's Day in Japan, but no one was celebrating it after an accident left 1 dead and 19 injured. The incident occurred on Fuji Rajan roller coaster ride. It was first built in 1970, if you wanted to know. The coaster design required riders to stand throughout the whole ride. Everything seemed normal when 20 passengers got onto the ride in early afternoon. The roller coaster was more than halfway through its ride, and suddenly the second car derailed and dramatically left toward the guardrail. That proved fatal for a young woman who was struck on her head on the railing as the coaster rolled down the tracks. The coaster continued making a horrible scraping sound before it finally came to a rest 300 meters later. Top Scan Adventure 2005, a popular amusement park in Long Island called Adventureland, had great safety record for 43 years until 2005. First, the park employee was killed by a kid's roller coaster called the Ladybug. I would hate to have that on my gravestone, to be honest. A female rider was ejected from her seat at the Top Scan in an accidental death result. Eyewitnesses suggest the woman was not properly secured in her seat. She was hurled straight up from the Top Scan ride. She went at least 25 feet in the air over the park fence, landing in a car parking lot. Derby Racer in 1911 to 1936. Things got off to a bad start in June 1911 when the treasurer of the roller coaster company was fatally injured, ironically when he stood up to lecture other passengers about safety. The accident actually was the second fatality of the year, forced local officials to revoke the rider's license until workers got things straight with the brakes and safety of the roller coaster. Apparently, however, the restraints didn't do too much. In 1917, a man lost his hat on the train, headed up a steep incline. He fell out of his car while attempting to recover his special hat. He tumbled onto the tracks, and he was hit by the train and dragged 35 feet until the roller coaster stopped. Train roller coaster. Either one. Just letting you know. The Cobra in 2022. Tivoli Freden Park is a popular amusement park located in Denmark. It opened in 1958 and has been popular with both locals and tourists ever since. The park has tons of riders and roller coasters, playgrounds, and hosts, and so forth. In July 22, the rear two seats became partially detached from the coaster and were hanging under the wagon train. Several people were trapped. According to the initial investigation, the rear part of the roller coaster broke loose and came off the rails. Coney Island, 1915. In 1915, 6 people boarded the ride. Excitement built as it slowly passed through an exhibit that recalled scenes from war. Then the train accelerated. A crowd looked on as it shot down an incline and headed into a sharp turn. Suddenly, the wheels left the track, flipping the car on its side and hurling the driver and 4 passengers into a flimsy iron railing 30 feet above the pavement. 3 fell to their death while 2, a woman and her 4-year-old child, clung onto the wreckage of the car until police came to rescue them. That is a brave woman. Fantasyland, 1986. In June of 1986, just after a day, Alberta Providence Safety Inspector declared the ride safe. The train slid around at a turn 60 miles per hour, gaining momentum at the first of 3 loops. Before it got there, through the rear car began to fishtail. It proceeded through the first 2 loops and then derailed, approached during the 3rd loop, stalling at the top, sliding backward into a concrete column. 3 riders died and at least 15 people were injured. In 1972, Bantry Park in London was the scene of what widely considered the world's worst roller coaster disaster in history. The ride was the Big Dipper, a 3-car wooden roller coaster built in 1951 as the main attraction for the park's new fun fair. Fun in exclamation point. But the coaster experienced problems from the beginning. In May 1951, an empty car derailed and knocked over a protective railing, stranding passengers in other cars. Another disaster struck in 1968 for this ride, when a woman broke her arm. But by far the worst in 1972 for this ride, when 31 passengers climbed into the car. As they left the chain prematurely reset the top of the first incline, the car plummeted backward down the hill and into a turn. The train derailed, killing 5 children and injuring 13 people. Now, how do you feel about roller coasters? Wasn't that an eventful, horrifying nightmare? What are your thoughts on roller coasters? Do you love them? I haven't been to a roller coaster in a long while. So let me know down in the comments, what's your favorite roller coaster ride? If you even go on them anymore. I think one of my favorites is in Six Flags of Texas. It's a white one. I don't remember what it's called. Or the mountain one where you're in complete darkness. So if you die, you're unaware. Anyways, thanks for joining. Hope you have a great day. Bye.